Today marks an amazing and very special week, day in the whole life of Journey Church. And this has always been an important week for us. October 10 of 2010, 15 years ago this week, we launched Journey Church. A group of about 40 folks built a launch team together, and we launched our very first public services with more than 400 people in attendance. It was an amazing day. 10 years ago this week, in fact, 10 years ago yesterday, we moved into this building. This tent anyway. So this has always been a very special week, but today is not a day about yesterday. Today is not a day about the good old days. Today is a day about the future. Today is a day where we step together into faith and into what story God has for Journey Church for the next 8 decades. We together have identified that everyone matters. Over the last 4 weeks, we have identified the vision that God has given us for our church, that He's given us a passion to identify and to reach our ones, the people in our life, that we want to share influence, that we want to share the love that we've experienced with them. And we've identified that everyone matters. Every one of you matter. Every one of your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your coworkers, your cousins, your brothers, your uncles and aunts, everyone matters. And we have identified at least one way to share influence with other people. That's been an important part of this, and you're going to hear a lot more about it in the future. But understand that what we are doing isn't trying to corner the market on sharing influence. There are millions of ways for you to share influence with the people around you. And I want you to know something, that God has a burden and a responsibility for every single one of us as followers of Jesus to share influence with other people. But He's also made a way for you to share that influence in a way that fits your personality, your skills, your relationships. We don't pretend to know all of the ways to share influence, but we do know one way. And one way is quite simple. It's open up your life. Open your life and invite the people, your ones, into it. Share your life with them. Notice their story. Notice their personality. Notice what's going on in their life. And then prayerfully and in faith engage next steps. We don't know all the ways to share influence, but we do know one way. We know one way. Open your life. Notice next steps and engage, or notice their story and engage next steps. That is a critical piece of the vision and the future of this church. Now listen, a trip down memory lane is fun, right? Especially if you were there. The trip down the last 15 years or the last 10 years or the last 5 years is fun if you were a part of those 15 or 10 or 5 years, right? But for the rest of the folks in this room, a trip down memory lane is boring. It's like a museum, right? I wasn't there for it. I didn't live it. I get it, but I don't really get it like people do. And I want you to know something. I've heard way too many preachers on platforms like this on anniversary days go down the memory lane trip and say, hey, we planted this church with 7 goats and 3 virgins. Okay, my wife is going to want me to tell you that I've never actually heard that story, but you get the idea. We love to tell our when we had it really bad stories. And can I be honest with you? That is not what we want to do. But would you do me a favor? Would you suffer one story because it's so critical for us, not for yesterday, but for tomorrow? It's important for us to recognize because it meets us exactly where we are today. Where we are today is we're stepping in to make room for the ones that we've identified. Make room because everyone matters. And that puts every one of us in an uncomfortable place, doesn't it? It puts every one of us on our heels feeling a little insecure because what we're talking about is a financial commitment from people. And let's just face it, when churches talk about money, it gets weird, doesn't it? But I want you to know something. Why I want to share this story with you and where we're going is not about dollars and pennies. It's about faith and obedience. We're not talking about dollars and pennies. We're talking about faith and obedience. Nobody is going to ask more of you than we're willing to sacrifice. Nobody is going to put pressure to financially perform or give a specific number or anything else. All we're simply asking is that every single person who calls Journey home would choose to ask God about their part, to listen for his voice and his leading, and then just simply to obey. Ask, listen, and obey. Because where he goes, he protects us. 15 years ago, or a little more than that, in 2010, Sheila and I moved here, late 2009. Early 2010, it was cold outside. Our girls were 5, 7, and 9 at the time. They are now all in their 20s. They were 5, 7, and 9, and we wanted to find something to do indoors with them that was fun. And we heard about this place called Fun Zone. We took the girls over for one of their open jump nights. We showed up, we paid our money, we went into the rooms, and we let them loose on the jumpers. Every parent's dream. Kids are safe and cared for and not yelling and screaming at me, right? They were having fun, jumping all over stuff. And I remember looking at Sheila and telling her, this would make an amazing place to launch the church that we moved here to plant. Except for all these jumpers. I mean, when I walked in there, they were huge, 27, 28 feet tall. I mean, just exploded with air full. And you just look at this room and go, man, it would be awesome in this place. It's a big open space, but these jumpers are in the way. And I honestly just moved on. I never really even thought about it. Because when I walked into the room, I saw giants in the land, just like the spies did when they walked into the promised land. They're like, yeah, there are huge things in the way. Fast forward to through March and April and May of that year, I was peeking in, unleased spaces. I was looking at places that we had no business even considering. I was calling realtors. I'm looking at used places. We're looking at all kinds of spaces that we were considering to launch Journey, but I had never even thought again about Fun Zone. About May or June, Chuck and I and all of our launch team were holding these neighborhood barbecues in people's yards. We'd get somebody on a team and we'd go to their house, into their neighborhood, and we'd set up a sound system and we'd rent a jumper, plug it into the wall, and we'd cook hot dogs and hamburgers and just hand them out to folks and just build relationships with people, all the while not even having a clue where we were going to land, where we were going to launch this church. We kept building relationships. Quickly, Chuck and I realized that we could buy a jumper cheaper than we could keep renting one. And so I went back over to Fun Zone. And I said to Rick and Carla and Stephanie in the office there, I'm like, hey guys, here's what we're doing. We'd like to do this. Do you have any used jumpers that you want to get rid of? Just small things, something we could tote around, do these things with. And they said, absolutely, we do. Come back here and see it. We walked back into those very same rooms where I saw those giant jumpers, and we walked in and the lights were off, the air was drained out, it was quiet, and I saw all of the big obstacles that I ran from before laying flat on the floor. I have no idea what Rick said about the jumper that we were looking at. I don't even remember what we paid for it because the voice in my head and in my heart was so loud. And it was God just clearly saying to me, Jeremy, all the obstacles that you see in the way are just full of air. I have this. Now, I told you we're not going to take the trip down memory lane, but that's critical for us to remember. You know why it's critical for us to remember? Because every one of us are scared about the future, just like I was terrified about the future. What is going to be asked of me? Am I going to be able to pull this off? Do I have what it takes to come through in this way? And every one of us are terrified today, looking at what the next few weeks holds for us. But I'll tell you this. The bottom line today is that if we remember what God has done in the past, it reminds us that we can trust Him with what's next. Now, I don't know about you, but I can look back countless times, not only just the story of Journey Church. I can look over countless times in my story, in my life, in Sheila and I, in our marriage, in our finances, in our relationships, where I didn't know what was going to happen, trusted God, and walked in it with Him, and He provided. And my ability to look back over what He has done allows me to trust Him with what is next. Think you're terrified? I'm terrified. I'm terrified about all of this. And that's why we're going to go on this journey together. We're going to hold hands through it. We're going to lock arms in it together because this is our family. And that is why we're asking 4 things from you. You've seen them over the last few weeks, and they're in that booklet that you have. If you'll just open that page up, you're going to see this. 4 things from everyone, for everyone. 4 things that we're asking from every single person who calls Journey Church home. 4 things from everyone, for everyone. Every one of these. Every one of these names, every one of these relationships, every one of these lives, every one of these children that God loves, every single one of them matter to us. We're going to make room together because everyone matters, and 4 things are going to get us there. The first thing is already checked. It's checked in your book, checked on this screen. Identify your one. Now, if you didn't do that, there's space here to do that this morning. We're glad to help you. There's stones and markers, and you could write the first name of the person that you've identified as your one. But now we got to get behind that. And the next thing we're going to ask of you is to attend a vision dessert. If you'll turn to page 18 and 19 of this booklet that was in your seat there, you're going to see that there are an explanation of this. In fact, if you're joining us online, you can go in the description of this video or in the comments there, and you're going to see a link to download it. And if you show up here, we'll give you one for this. Now listen, this is so much more than a vision booklet, right? This isn't a brochure. You go, oh, look at the cute pictures, and toss it in the floor. This is a workbook. This is a workbook intended for you to open up and write in it and interact with it and journal your way through it as you and I learn to ask, to listen, and to obey and communicate. Every single thing on this list is all about that. Identify your one, attend a vision dessert. Let's talk about where we're going. Let's get your questions answered. Pray about your part in this story, and then just obey. That's all we're asking. In fact, I'll tell you this. If you ever feel any specific financial pressure for you to measure up to a certain level or for you to do something so that you can fit in around here, you feel free to back out. You feel free to put your hands up and say, listen, I just want to go to church here, okay? But if you feel like there's a prompting, either from up here or from inside, for you to lean in and ask God what you should do. And if there's a prompting inside of you to listen to His voice, this may be for some of us the very first time that we've ever made time to listen for God to move. We'll learn that together. And then if you feel a prompting inside to obey that didn't come from me. That came from God moving us to make room because everyone matters. It matters. If this becomes about money, by the way, man, I'll tell you this. We lost this game long before we even started it. If this whole idea becomes about making buildings happen or getting money into bank accounts, I will promise you this, I'm out first. I'm the first one to push away from that idea. Because I'll tell you this, one thing I've learned over the last 15 years is that money can buy stuff, but faith can move mountains. Money can buy things. It can build buildings. It can, make us feel secure. But faith can move mountains. And that is why we are not after your money. That is why we don't want your money. What we want is your faith. God will not call us in faith to go anywhere that He won't also protect us and care for us and provide for us. So I don't want you 1 inch out past your faith. I want you simply to ask and listen and obey. Because the reality is, when you look back and see how what God has done to care for you and protect you and provide for you, it helps you be able to trust him for what's next. Isn't that the truth? Looking back at what God has done in your life, that's how I know that God will continue to provide for me. Now listen, I want you to know something. Facing ideas like where we're going is tough. It's scary, isn't it? Planting a new church is scary. It's tough. It's difficult, right? Being in the relationships you're in, the financial situation you're in, the businesses that you're in, all of those things are terrifying. And I want you to know something. Going into new ground it's not new for people to be scared. And can I say this? This is so important you understand this. You're not less of a Christian because you are nervous about the future. You're not less of a follower of Jesus. You're not unfaithful. You're just scared because I get it. It's scary. There's a story in Scripture where the disciples, now these are the dudes who are like the 12 closest human people to Jesus. And at this point in the Gospel of Luke, or this point in the story with Jesus, he's done some pretty amazing things in their presence. They have personally seen Jesus teach crowds of people with unbelievable, unmatched authority. They have watched Jesus cast out demons. They have watched Jesus heal the sick, give sight to the blind, make the lame walk. They have seen Jesus face to face already raise people from the dead. But that didn't keep them from being afraid when difficult things happen. That didn't keep them from being nervous because they were out on a boat ride going from one side to the other side of this lake, this sea, right? And they're in the thing, and all of it went crazy. The wheels fell off of the weather. Jesus was already asleep. He chilled out already. Probably knew it was coming. And here's what it says in Luke chapter 8. It says this: one day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side of the lake." So they got into the boat and they set out. And they sailed. He fell asleep. A squall came down on the lake so that the boat was being swamped. And they were in great danger. It was scary, right? You've been in situations like that. Maybe you're feeling it now, or maybe it's a relationship or a business thing. Whatever's going on in your life, you feel all that tension and that fear, don't you? They were in great danger, much like you feel like you're in now. And look what it says. The disciples went and they woke him, Jesus. They're like, "Hey, Jesus, bro, wake up." They're like, "Hey, Master, we're going to drown," right? We're in over our heads. There's no way this is going to work out for us. But understand what he says. He got up, Jesus did, and he rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided and all was calm. "Where is your faith?" he says to them. "Where's your faith in this? Where's your faith?" he asked his disciples, and in fear and amazement, they asked one another, "Who is this? Who's this guy?" Right? Who's this guy? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. They've already seen him raise the dead, give sight to the blind, make the lame walk, heal the sick. They've seen him teach with authority, and now they're blown away because he can tell a storm to stop. You see, they weren't unfamiliar with what Jesus had done in the past. They just weren't taking time to look back at it. They weren't making room in the moment to remember how God had provided for them. They weren't making room in their space to look back and remember what he'd done so they could trust him with what is next. And I think that's a critical piece. Understand some of them, but here's the most important part of it. They were in danger. Look at these words. They were in great danger. Their fear wasn't unsubstantiated, right? Their fear wasn't misplaced. They were actually in danger. It was a bad moment. They were scared, and that's okay. It's always okay to be scared. That's where faith comes in. Faith is really what needs to happen in our life when we are in a place where we're scared. But here's the thing that they have to do in that is they have to choose where to put their faith. Because, and you'll notice on page 18 and 19, by the way, if you flip over just a couple, or up to page 26, I'm sorry. When you look over at page 26, you're going to see a place for you to write down some notes today. And that is an important part of it, is that you remember that storms didn't stop us then, and they're not going to stop us now. That's the thing that the disciples missed. That's the thing that you and I need in our fear. In the middle of our fear, in the middle of our anxiety about what tomorrow holds, whether it's this decision or not, by the way, whether it's your relationships, your friendships, what's going on in your life that makes you nervous and scared, whether you just graduated college and you're like, I don't know what my first big boy job, my first big girl job is going to be. I don't know if I made the right decision in the past and I'm terrified about the future. Remembering what God has done. Remembering that storms and difficulties didn't stop you then, they can't stop you now because of who is in charge. I would say this is so important for us in the middle of anxiety. The disciples, when they went and woke him, they said, Master, we're going to drown. He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters, and the storm subsided, and all was calm. And here's what he said to them. Where is your faith? He didn't say, you've got no faith. He didn't point fingers at them. He didn't condemn them. He didn't belittle their faith. Because we all have faith. The question is, where are we putting it? That's what Jesus was pointing out to them. Jesus was pointing out to them that they had faith. They had just placed it in the wrong things. In the middle of the storm, where they could best put their faith was in the Jesus who could speak to the wind and the waves, and everything goes calm. But where they were putting it was in their boat. Where they were putting it was in their skill as fishermen, as people who could navigate waters. And when the circumstances overwhelmed where they were putting their faith, they were scared and they were in danger. They weren't in danger just because the circumstances were bad. They were in danger because of where they were putting their faith. And that really has to become the question that we ask. In this decision, and here's the deal, I'm just going to tip our hand and tell you the secret behind this whole thing. The secret behind this whole thing is if you and I can learn to ask God what to do, if you and I can learn to listen for his voice, and you and I can choose to obey what we hear him say in this decision, guess what? Secret, right? We can apply asking and listening and obeying to every part of our life. So that when the storms rage in our relationships, in our business, in our work, in our money, when the storms rage, we can go, hey, I learned to ask, and I learned to listen, and I learned to obey, and where I put my faith determines how much danger I'm in. Now, it's not easy, is it? It wasn't easy for the disciples. It's not easy for us. It's not easy for any of us, because here's the reality. When we don't have faith in storms, not because it's not easy, right? We don't have faith in storms because it's the easy thing to do. We have faith in the storm because of who's in the boat with us. Jesus is in the boat. And if Jesus is in the driver's seat of our life, we have nothing to worry about. He's in charge. My faith and my trust is placed in him. But when I place it in myself, it's real easy to get distracted, isn't it? This whole last few weeks has been really, really busy for me. I've been meeting with a lot of people, getting ready to this place. I've been kind of getting all the details and the stuff ready. And honestly, I've just been a bit anxious about all of it, asking for kind of participation and going out on a faith limb and saying that I believe God's taken us here. Those are all terrifying things to me. And last Wednesday morning, I got up and I got into my car and I was headed into the day, and I put my foot on the brake and I pushed the little button to start my 2021 Toyota Prius. You can make fun of me all you want, right? I get 95 miles a gallon. Push the button and the dash lit up like a Christmas tree. Like it lit up like, lights that I didn't even know I had, messages saying it's not safe to drive, take it directly to the dealer, and the brake power is low. And I'm like, what on earth is happening? This is terrifying. I don't have time for car troubles. I'm busy doing good stuff, right? I got a vision that I'm working on. I got money to figure out. I got all these things that are working out. I'm anxious about it. I don't have time for car trouble, but I didn't have time to die in a car accident because the brakes aren't working, right? I have to stand on them to get it to stop from 10 miles an hour. I nursed it over to the dealer because that's what the car said to do, and I was scared. And it's a little different of a vehicle, and I got it there. And later that afternoon, I found out that the whole hybrid braking system, my little 2021 Prius, had failed miserably. And that the cost of the repair was going to be $5,000. You can imagine how the sinking pit in my stomach, I was nauseous, and my wife joined me in that. She didn't quite tell me how anxious she was about it, but she was anxious. And I'll be honest with you, this is just transparent and honest. My first inclination, and honestly, the inclination for several days, was I'm going to get that car home, and I did. I nursed it home, and I'm going to hook up the diagnostic stuff, and I'm going to turn the lights off, and I'm going to sell that joker to Carvana and make it somebody else's problem. That was the first inclination, and one that I entertained for days. You know why? Because I was putting my trust in me. Hey, I'm at work furthering the mission of Jesus. I'm at work making room so that we can reach everyone, right? Because everyone matters. I'm at work doing those things. I'm like, God, I've got things to do. And here's the deal. Sheila and I are every single day asking God, what part do you want us to play in this? We're making room to listen to his voice. Sheila and I are in exactly the same position that you're in. We're terrified about the future, and we're praying about it, and we're saying, God, you won't take us somewhere that you won't protect us. And it's tough because I'm like, hey, I'm trusting in my stuff. So here's God, I don't want to not be able to obey what you're doing because of this car. I'm just going to sell it until the Holy Spirit, who sounded a lot like my wife, said, hey, I know this is stressful, but I don't feel like we can ask God to bless a less than honest effort. Man, it hit me. She's right. She's 100% right. I was placing my faith in my good things ever. I was trying to be almost good so that I could be more than good somewhere else and trying to balance it out. But that's not what was going on. So I decided, with my wife's encouragement and support, that we were just going to be open and honest and figure it out. I don't know how. I'd love to tell you that that's all tied up in a neat little bow now. I gave that over to Jesus, and the brakes started working again, and we're fine. It's not. We don't know for sure what's going to happen, but I'll tell you what is going to happen. The enemy's not going to steal that kind of opportunity for us to ask, listen, and obey from us by giving us like an out to be dishonest. What is going to happen is we're going to be honest and open, and we're going to deal with an open hand with it, and we're going to ask, and we're going to listen, and we're going to obey even if it costs us everything. Because that is where faith will take you, because I've seen him provide for us in the past, and he will provide for us in the future. I want to ask you a question, and it's on the bottom of that sheet. Why do you think it's so hard? Why do you think it's so easy for us to forget what God has done? Or why do you think it's so hard to remember what God has done for us in the past when things get tough? I could tell you why I was doing it. I was trusting in my stuff, right? I was trusting in my technical ability. I was trusting in the equipment I had to turn off those lights. I was trusting in my good works to outweigh this kind of like maybe side-handed thing. I'll tell you why it was hard for me, but I can't answer it for you. All I can do is give you this question to answer on your own. Why do you think it's so hard for you to trust what God's done and what God will do in the future because of what he's done in the past? Why? What's difficult for you? Will you be open and honest with yourself? You're going to see that over these 4 weeks in those note pages. There are some things that you get a chance to go home and work out yourself. There's some questions about some like personal reflection places in it where you get to ask yourself some questions. And I'll promise you this, if you'll be open and honest with yourself and write those down and keep that journal, keep that place, and learn over the next few weeks to ask and to listen, to obey in this choice, then I'll promise you that will apply to every part of your life after this day, after this effort, after these 4 weeks, after these 3 years, for all of the future. It's why we keep asking these things. 4 things from everyone, for everyone. These 4 things will help us get to the point where we together make room, because everyone matters. We will together make commitments, and we'll see where God plays it out. We've set some big goals. We believe God has big vision and big things for us to accomplish. And here's the deal. They're so big that only God could accomplish them. Can I just say that? These are not things that we have it in our ability just to go do, right? The bar is not low enough for us. It's not so low that we could do it on our own. This is a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? This is a God-sized goal. And it's going to require every one of us. But what's more important than that is that God's movement in our hearts, right? If every one of us would learn in this to ask and listen to obey, if every one of us would step forward and make whatever commitment it is in faith, I will promise you this, no matter what the dollar amount is, we will always have enough. Because when it's done in faith, it can always be enough. When it's done with money, money just buys stuff. Faith can move mountains. So I'll leave you with one simple question. It's right at the bottom of every one of these pages. What's next for you? I'd love to prescribe that for you, by the way. I'd love to tell you this is what's next for all of us. But the problem is we all have our faith in different places. And what's next for you is really about identifying where you're placing your faith now, and then figuring out what it is to take and place your faith in Jesus. I will give you one next step. If you haven't already registered for a Vision Dessert, turn back to page 18. You can scan that QR code. You can go to ourjourney.news and roll down to Vision Desserts and sign up for one. There's one this afternoon. There's one tomorrow. There are 2 next weekend. There are 2 more coming up on the 15th and the 20th. There are plenty of opportunities. And at that, I promise you this, there will not be one moment of financial pressure, but we will together paint not only a vision for our church, we're going to paint a vision for our lives where we together learn to ask and to listen and to obey.